Welcome to the Real Recovery Show. We air every Friday at noon, and we're super excited about all the feedback we've been getting. I was really surprised to hear how many people were happy that we had such a variety of shows. I was thinking for a moment maybe people wouldn't stay tuned if there was such a variety, but it's fascinating and interesting. And anyway, so we've done a lot of different interviews with people, and now we're going to venture a little bit more into interviews with authors on specific topics, and also just having episodes on topics themselves. So today's topic is for a special episode for New Year's. New Year's is, to me, the time of the year when everybody reevaluates their life and they see how far they've come, and they make these big New Year's resolutions about how things are going to be different. And that's also usually following the holidays, where they spend a lot of time with their family, which if they themselves might not tell themselves where they should be by now in their life, maybe a family member might. But, wherever it is, it could be full of fun and positive affirmations and good plans and a fresh start. But it could also be where, if you're like me, you can use it as an opportunity to criticize yourself or make grandiose plans and set yourself up for disappointment. I used to live 1 year at a time, one lifetime at a time. And the way that I was always in my head when I was a child, I used to plan my whole future. Because the reason why I put so much effort and emphasis on the future was because I couldn't stand the narrative I had about my childhood. So I just wanted to be anywhere but here, anytime but now, anybody but me. And so I would fantasize, I would write a lot, and I wrote poems. I wrote over 500 poems. I would read, I would research, and yeah, I would check out. Before I even did any super addictive behavior, I was already practicing not being in my body, although I didn't know that that's what I was doing. And then, of course, food and other addictions started budding, and I started to learn that I can have help in not being in my body. And I didn't understand why it was so uncomfortable. If you asked me as a child why I was so uncomfortable, I would have pointed the finger at other people. My parents who were checked out and who had PTSD, the kids who might have been making fun of me at school, the teachers who maybe didn't notice me, or the classes maybe I wasn't doing well in, or I don't know. My childhood was miserable, and I had a big story about it, and I lived inside of my story about how bad the present was and how the future needed to be so much better. And I made these big plans. I mean, I was going to do all kinds of things, and none of them, I had all these different plans, and none of them seemed like they were all going to happen for the same person. Because, I was going to be a scientist, but wait, I was going to be a business owner, but wait, I was going to be a model, and on and on. And it's kind of interesting because I did do a little of everything, and I was going to be a healer, and I was going to be a teacher, and luckily I'm a Gemini, so I'm able to think all the different things. But I had no idea, and it's not like I was not exposed to self-help books. My mother used to buy self-help books like they were going out of style, and we had tons and tons of books. My dad read science fiction, and my mom read all these self-help books, and and I was born in the early 70s, so the books I got to see were A Hero is More Than a Sandwich, and I'm Okay, You're Okay, and stuff like that. So it's not, unusual in our world for people to be so focused on wanting to change everything. If they're miserable in their relationship, it's the other person. If they're miserable in their job, it's the job. If they feel unfairly treated, it's always the other person. And I don't know, if something's not right with their body, it's their body. It's not how they're treating it, how maybe they're not taking care of it, or etc. But I had this huge story that I just kept building and nurturing about how horrible the present was. And later, it's one of the things that fueled my addiction. I fully believed that I was being self-loving by drinking or doing drugs or smoking cigarettes or eating copious amounts of food or sleeping with a person. I truly believed, buying myself stuff, right? I truly believed that I was loving myself by doing these things because my life was so bad. I didn't know what my life was, though. What is a person's life? And so it's through recovery and learning, what really makes up our life. In recovery, we learn about how to live one day at a time. And it's kind of interesting because, again, right now, there's Christmas, there's New Year's, and there's resolutions and all that. And there's plans. And even when you first get into recovery, there's plans. So you're like, okay, I'm going to get sober. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to get the kids back. I'm going to get my job better. I'm going to da 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 da. And we're not medicating, but we're still thinking a crazy way because there's no way we're treating our bodies like human doings and not human beings. And it just becomes toxic. What I later found out was that while there were some experiences in my childhood that could be seen as pretty gnarly, I was miserable more so because of the story I had and the story I kept having. And the resentments I wasn't releasing, and the anxiety and the insecurity and the shame and the feeling like I'm too much because I was believing I was too much, and the feeling like I'm not enough and because I was believing that I'm not enough, and the fear of people and the fear of abandonment, just all that stuff. And yeah, my life was really hard, and yeah, it was uncomfortable to be in my own skin because they used to say that, let's say you lived with somebody and your roommate was nasty to you, horrible, like said horrible things to you all the time, and you couldn't trust that person or anything. Like, why would you want to live with that person, right? You'd be like, you gotta move. You gotta move. I can't live with you. But we carry that roommate around, the negative self-talk and the plans and designs that we make that we think everybody makes these plans. I mean, advertising says, you need this, you need to buy this, you need to look like this, you need to get this. Shows everything say you need to be someplace else doing something else. Go on this vacation, get this car, whatever. These things will make you feel better. But really, it's all here. It's all here. The reason why we give so much emphasis on all these other things, the reason why we blame all these things outside of ourselves, and the reason why we seek all these other things outside of ourselves is because we believe that the problem is out there. And so we believe the solution is out there. When we start to recognize that in recovery, that it's our own programming, that it's the self-talk, that it's the beliefs that we have, then we start to have a real hope or a real chance, because now we can change the part of the mind that's showing us everything that we see and that's telling us to do everything that we do, and that talks to us in a way that makes us so uncomfortable, that makes us, because we believe it, so uncomfortable that we could even vibrate in our own skin as the mind suggests. Now that I got you right where I want you, why don't you take a drink? Why don't you take a drink? Why don't you take a pill? This is too much for you. And so, when we start using anything to cope in this world, we are relying then on that instead of on our own strength. And we're not learning the tools on how to live. And so the next time we have that stressor, the next time we have that trigger the next time we have that interpretation, we're going to end up doing the same thing because we don't have another way of seeing it yet. But through recovery, we learn the value of the concept of one day at a time. What a powerful concept. At first, it's like, oh my God, how in the world could I possibly do it? I have to make plans. I have to do things. This is going to take too long. I can't live like this. What do you mean one day at a time? Are you telling me I'm never going to be able to drink again? And on and on and on. And so, but stay with me, because if you have any issues with it, or any issues with being present and comfortable in your own skin, and feeling empowered and intuitive, then maybe I definitely hope, but maybe you will have something that you hear from this that'll help you. And so what I did when I first really started focusing on my recovery was I had to learn mindfulness. My head would make me feel so sick that I could make myself crazy anywhere for any reason. And I found myself getting these anxiety attacks. And for a while, I had panic attacks. And if you've ever had those, that is the epitome of anywhere but here. Like, oh my God, it's horrid. And so what I started to practice was mindfulness. And mindfulness, there's lots of books on mindfulness, but the basic mindfulness is to focus your mind on what is going on now, to be present. And so if I'm washing the dishes, I'm washing the dishes. If I'm driving a car, I have my hands on the steering wheel. If I am telling myself some what-if story, I say, hey, right now, that's not where I'm at. Right now I have the roof over my head. I have food to eat. I have a scary story I'm telling myself, but I'm going to bring my mind back here. And we practice this. We practice mindfulness. What am I doing? We have to practice, because if we're used to checking out in our minds and being anywhere but here, then we're going to have to practice being present. And so I did that, and that helped tremendously. The Serenity Prayer also helped a lot, to be able to say, okay, well, what do I need to accept for now, and what can I really change? And that would help digest some of it and help me to let go and to trust God, a higher power. And then meditation. A lot of people think that you shouldn't really learn about meditation until you've been well into your recovery, but I don't agree with that at all. I feel like even if what you're doing when you're sitting is staring at a candle, or or reading a mantra, or listening to music, or playing some sort of video that helps you focus, or burning some incense or anything. And it's been scientifically proven, the actual ritual of setting up your space, of burning the incense or playing the music or whatever, the brain starts getting used to this. It starts to become a brain pattern, a neurologic brain pattern, where you start to actually go into a meditative state just in the setting up, because your body knows that you're about to do it. It's kind of like Pavlov's theory, where the dog started to salivate whenever there was a ringing of a bell. It's like the moment that we start to wind down and set up our space and start doing this, the more calmer we end up being. Rituals like waking up in the morning and praying, or waking up in the morning and reading a daily meditation. There are tons of books on recovery, most of which are put out by Hazelden, and some really powerful authors with a lot of great wisdom to share. And so just reading a daily reading, or taking a book and closing it and opening it to whatever page resonates. Practicing being present, practicing doing these things, recognizing that this is stuff that we weren't doing before. But understand also that if you're just coming off of drinking or doing drugs, and you're no doubt going to be uncomfortable in your own skin for more reasons than what your head is telling you, just allow yourself to be comfortable being uncomfortable, knowing that it's temporary. there's a lot of things that we can do in this life that we would never want to do for a whole lifetime. But if we knew it's temporary, if we knew that this too shall pass, if we knew that, hey, you know what? This week might be hard, this month might be hard, but I'm just going to take it one moment at a time and it's going to get easier. We know it's going to get easier. We see it with other people that it's going to get easier. And so we trust that. And because we trust that, we can live one day at a time. Now, one of the things that happens when somebody gets into recovery is this idea that, oh my God, if I admit that I'm an alcoholic or a drug addict, does this mean that I can never drink or use drugs again? Does this mean that for the rest of my life, I can never have a drink again? I don't know if I could do that. And they start to worry. And that worry, that future focusing can create another state where you're uncomfortable, so uncomfortable that we start obsessing about the thing that we tell ourselves we're never going to do again. And that's really, really, really detrimental to somebody's recovery, is to think about their whole life and to say, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to do this again. I'm never going to be able to do that again. And they're like, whoa, Nellie, just slow down. Just for today, one day at a time. I'm not going to drink today. I one time heard this and I loved it so much that it was one of the things that shifted my recovery, because I also had that idea. I mean, I had this idea like, really, I'm never going to be able to do this again. I'm never going to be able to do that again. And when I focused on all the things I'm never going to be able to do, it made me miserable. I couldn't fathom having a great life. And I'm coming up on 24 years in a few days. And man, I'd like to go back to that girl and shake her and say, honey, you have no idea what living is like. You've been literally relying on a pill or something to smoke or to drink or to eat. Like you've been relying on those things. You haven't really lived. Like you have no idea what it's like to be free. But I can't, because the journey was the journey. But however, a concept that was told to me was, it's not that you can never drink again. It's that, can you imagine a life where you never have to? Can think about that. I mean, at the end of drinking and using, we're like married to the alcohol, married to the drugs. We are a prisoner. We have to drink. We have to do drugs. We are so uncomfortable in our own skin. We're so dependent on the substance that the idea of not having it or having it are both equally bad. We can't even fathom what we're supposed to do before we finally bottom and make a decision, hopefully, to heal, right? And so the concept of, I never have to. Oh my God. You mean I could learn the tools that I need and I could heal the stuff that's going on in my consciousness, and I could be comfortable in my own skin, and I could intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle me, and I could have this support system that I didn't have because either I didn't have it or I pushed them away. Wow, like, oh my God, it's almost unfathomable. You mean I could live in a state of mind that doesn't need a drink, that doesn't need a drug? Oh my God, what could that be like? And yeah, one time I had this experience, and I went to this club. My best friend at the time was a nightclub DJ, and he was DJing, and I wasn't drinking, and so I was sober and not really that well into recovery yet. This was many years ago, and I was there, and I had this moment where I was comparing my insides to everybody else's outsides. In my mind, everybody was having a good time but me. And I felt so uncomfortable. And I was just like, oh man. Because I had no tools yet. I had no idea how to be fit for human consumption. I was totally like no idea what I was doing. But I was there, and it's a freaking miracle I didn't drink. But I remember this day like it was yesterday. I remember what it looked like. I remember the whole club, the way it was laid out, and I remember saying, "Oh my God, I really think I should drink. I really want to drink." And then this thought came to my mind and reminded me about my recovery community and the people that I knew and my life that I was working on and working with, and I was like, oh, I'd be walking away from that. And so I had this battle, right? Oh my God, should I or shouldn't I? Should I or shouldn't I? Should I or shouldn't I? And if you ever wonder whether you're an alcoholic or a drug addict, if you ever have the should I or shouldn't I conversation with yourself, I can't diagnose you, but you might be one. Because my whole night was consumed by this, and I finally, thank God, said, if I really want to do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. And that was, I didn't realize it at the time, one of my ways of learning how to live one day at a time. That just for today, I'm not going to drink. That's all. I don't have to think about my whole life. Just for today, I'm not going to drink. So for this show, I asked several people to give me questions, and this way I can have a whole bunch of questions that I can answer on the topic of one day at a time. And so one of the questions that was asked was, I am newly sober, and it's just so hard. What am I supposed to do? And so to that, there's a lot of tools that you can use, obviously. If you're in 12-step recovery, definitely go to as many meetings as you possibly can. People would say, well, how many meetings are you supposed to go to? And people would say, well, how often did you drink or do drugs? And it's cute. But even if you're somebody who doesn't do something every day, we think every day. We think the thoughts from our programming every day. And so to go to things where we can enrich our mind and we can learn and we can heal is highly beneficial. To go to things where we can be around like-minded people who also understand where we are and can help us focus on the future in a healthier way, rather than leaving ourselves to go into the future, that's also very helpful. But to learn how to live in day-tight compartments, read literature, get your hands on things that you feel like would really help you, and make phone calls and get phone numbers and fill your time with people who are focused on being sober and focused on being in recovery. And understand again that this too shall pass. I know it's super uncomfortable in the beginning, but it's kind of meant to be, because if it was so comfortable at the end of our addiction, our active addiction, I don't know that we would have made the big change that we really needed to for our soul to come and become the main focus of our life, for us to awaken. And so another question that was asked, actually this question was asked a lot, and so I just combined it into one question, was, what if your life is overwhelming? What if it's too much? How are you supposed to live one day at a time? And so I'm just going to share, and again, this whole show is just me sharing my experience, strength, and hope. There are so many other tools, and I'm probably going to think of some of them on the way home from the radio station. But so I'm just going to give you some of the things that have worked for me. So to me, there's two different ways to write a to-do list, right? To-do lists can make a person crazy, because you could write down all the things that you think need to happen, and you can then feel shame or fear or anxiety, and then be perfectionistic and tell yourself in a militaristic inner dialogue that it needs to all get done today. And obviously, you could tell by the way I'm saying this is not necessarily going to bring you the peace of mind that you so desperately need. And if you're anything like me, will shut you down, so you say fuck it and don't do anything. So I don't recommend it. However, there is another way to make a to-do list. And you could take a piece of paper and you can fold it the long way, and you can, the crease down the middle can be the line that you use, and on the left you write down all the things that you think you need to do, all of them. Just write it all down, just get it out of your head, get it out, and just write it all down. And then on the right, and if you have a faith yet in a higher power, pray first and ask for guidance about these things, and be honest. And so I would be honest. I would go down the list and I would say, okay, does this really need to be done? Does this really need to be done by me? Does this really need to be done today? And it would be amazing how in my head there would be this overwhelming list, but on paper it starts to get sorted, and I'm like calling bullshit on myself going, that doesn't really have to be done by me, and that really doesn't have to be done today, and this doesn't even really need to be done. It's just something I want. And start to like pick the things, and it gets chewed down to just a little list of chewables. Now, then comes a really great slogan, progress, not perfection. One step at a time. So I do one thing at a time. Now that it's on paper, I don't have to think of all the things that I have to do. I could do one thing at a time and be fully present doing it. And something happens when you're fully present doing a thing. Not only do you feel more peace of mind, but you're less likely to make mistakes, right? And you're less likely to be stressed out doing it. You get to experience it and recognize how maybe you even enjoy doing it, something that you've told yourself you don't. You might find that the thing you think is going to take so much time doesn't even take that long. I swear I used to think doing the dishes took an hour. Doing my laundry took hours, Maybe it did because I procrastinated, and by the time I did it, it took hours. But it becomes a no big deal when you're one by one, and as you're going through the list and you know that these are the things that you really felt needed to get done, you start to feel better about your day, and you start to feel like you're in the flow of life, living one day at a time. It's just for today. On that list, you can also say, well, this doesn't have to get done today, but probably tomorrow or Friday or Thursday or whatever, and then you just write that. And then there you go. You've sorted it. There's something about writing something out. The most overwhelming thing is when it's all swimming around your mind. The mind having to remember and keep track of stuff is like, me, do this. And it's like daunting and nauseating. And so I have felt, for somebody who can be like an overachiever, and then I could swing past normal and go into bed and put the blanket over my head saying, screw this day, I'm going to start over tomorrow. Like, I've been both many times in the same day. So, that's been extremely helpful. And also, start to learn where you're at and bloom where you're planted. I think sometimes we just have these unrealistic expectations of ourselves, and we just think that we're supposed to have everything done. And there's this really great acronym for shame. It is should have already mastered everything. We have to be willing and able to just be right where we're at. When we take on all of it and we think all of it needed to be done yesterday, we put this unrealistic pressure on ourselves, and that makes us very uncomfortable in our own skin. And even if it was something we could have enjoyed doing, it becomes something we don't like doing, and that everything becomes so stressful. You can see how the programming and the way that we're thinking in our life can make us so uncomfortable that, oh man, I need a drink, happens to the mind after something like that, right? The thought goes, this day is too much. I can't wait till it's over. It's like, it doesn't need to be that way. We just need to learn how to live life on life's terms and move with it. And it's amazing what gets accomplished. I accomplish the most when I'm not racing, when I'm taking it one step at a time. And another thing is, if one of the reasons why you're so overwhelmed in your life is because you've taken on too much. Are you a people pleaser? Are you realistic about your time? It's kind of funny because when, you have a certain amount of money in your wallet and you know that's all the money that you have, and you say, okay, this costs this costs that. I can only buy one, or I can only buy this much of these things. Okay. And then you budget appropriately. But in the mind space that we're in these days, where everybody uses credit cards and debit cards, there's a disconnect with how much money we may really have, right? And so we might overspend, right? If we're not being more mindful. Well, the same thing happens with time. We can overpromise, overcommit. Oh, we want them to like us. Oh, we don't want to disappoint them. Oh, we want to be the person to be able to do that. Oh, we're afraid of losing that client. Oh, we're afraid of not having enough money. And we're up in our head and we're making all of these decisions and we're signing up for so much, and we have an inability to say no because we don't really see what the big deal is until the things that we thought we wanted to do and the things that we offered to do because maybe so-and-so needed us or needed help with something or anything, time comes to do it. Even fun things. We make plans with people and we're so inflexible about it that we're not willing to cancel it because we're so afraid of letting the other person down. But when we overpromise, we overcommit, and we people please, it makes our life so stressful. And we could be lying to ourselves and telling ourselves that our life is full, but it's stressful. It's full of stress. And so, yeah, just like with that paper of finding out what really needs to be done, recognizing how much can really be done in a day. There was this, in recovery, there was this email that was going around. It was written about a girl who had some sort of illness, and she said that she figures out what she could do in a day by how many spoons she has. And so she has a certain amount of spoons a day, and so somebody says, hey, can you come and help me with this thing? And she goes, I would love to do that. But if I do that, I'm not going to be able to do this other thing because I only have a certain amount of energy. I only have a certain amount of brain. I only have a certain amount to be able to do these things. So I can't do that today because I really do have to go take care of this other thing. And, she had this illness. Now, I have epilepsy. And so I completely appreciated this from that perspective, being able to learn how to be able to say no. I don't feel like that's going to be a good idea for me today, or I don't really know if I could do this. And, because I get worn down, I get seizures, and they would be like God's way of saying, all right, Lisa, time out. Let's do this again. Because I'm a hard-headed person. And I had to learn, oh my God, I pushed myself too hard. I didn't take care of myself. I stayed up too late, which I can still do sometimes. But, so people were talking about this in recovery about, really living in day-tight compartments and recognizing, the tools that we feel like we need in any given day. And one of them is to be able to say no and to make sure we pause first and really ask ourselves if this is something that we should be doing right now. That we could do anything, but we can't do everything, and we can't do everything at once. So that was really helpful too. I even say that. I go, I don't know if I have the spoons for that today. I have epilepsy, right? So there's a couple of concerts I've wanted to go. I had to clear my schedule. I couldn't sign up for all these things in the same day and go to this concert because I really wanted to see it. And so I knew that about myself. Now, had I not known this tool, I would have ended up being very, very sick or just not been able to go and wasted the tickets. And so it was important enough to me to see. I saw Fleetwood Mac. It was really good. Love it. So that's very, very powerful. Also, just recognizing that we have these stories in our mind, and so the programming in the mind that pushes too hard, that tells us we're not enough, that tells us we're too much, that programming is likely going to balk. If you're somebody who's been signing up for a whole bunch of stuff and with disregard for your health, and you're constantly suffering emotionally, mentally, physically, you're exhausted, you're not able to sleep, you're not able to put the day to bed when you go to bed, these are signs. And so it's initially the way we've been self-talking, our little militaristic inner dialogue, right? The way we've been talking to ourselves, that's what's going to talk to us in the beginning. And so one of the things that was taught to me by somebody I loved very, very much, she's no longer with us, but wow, was this so powerful. I said to her, God, when somebody asks me to do a thing and I don't really feel to do it, I have a hard time saying no because I feel guilty, right? I don't know how many of you have related with that. And she said, something? She said, when you're put in a position where you have, it seems, two options. One, you say yes when you know intuitively that you need to say no, and then you get resentful, right? Because you knew you shouldn't have done it, they're never going to appreciate you enough. You're never going to get paid enough. They're never going to benefit enough. You're never going to feel really like it was worth it because you did something that wasn't right for you, right? And you're going to maybe even resent them for putting you in that position, right? Or God forbid you do all this work for somebody and they don't even use it, right? Or give you credit or whatever it is that you might care about. She says, when you have a choice between resentment, you do the thing that you're not supposed to do, and guilt, you don't do the thing that you know you're not supposed to do. She said, take the guilt. She says it's a quicker healing. She says, because the guilt is also a story. It's a story that you shouldn't be taking care of yourself, that you shouldn't be selfish, you shouldn't have self-care. She said, take the guilt, because you're going to find, when you really look at it, underneath the surface of it, of what's really going on, a fear of abandonment, a fear of not being liked. It has nothing to do with what you think is the right thing to do. And so the more I started taking the guilt and facing my own guilt and facing my own stories and questioning it, the easier it became, until it became so easy to be able to say no that I'm able to say no, as long as we're honest with ourselves, you know? Now, it could be that you really do feel an intuition to do it, but your head says don't do it, right? Well, that's not the same scenario. And I've had to learn that. You know what? To thine own self be true. So another question somebody asked is, actually several people asked this, is how do we plan then for the future if we're living one day at a time? Well, I've learned that living one day at a time does not mean that we don't think about the future. It's that we don't live in the future. We pray for intuition, we pray for guidance, we pray for the next indicated step, and we do it. We may feel like somebody may ask us, hey, can you do this event in the future? Or can you go on this trip in the future? Or you're working towards maybe running a marathon, or whatever it is, something in the future you're signing up for or you're working towards. And you feel guided to. You feel an intuition that says, yes, let me do this. That's great. Just don't get attached to that. Don't get attached to the event. Don't tell yourself that it's going to be so great. My life is going to be good. I can't wait for this to happen. And this is going to fix everything. Because what happens is, and we don't realize that we're doing it, we're literally telling and affirming to ourselves that we cannot be happy right now, that we don't have everything we need right now, that it's going to happen in the future. And not only is that detrimental to our ability to learn to be present, but what if the thing doesn't happen? Or if it doesn't happen the way you want it to, right? Now you're going to have resentments. You're going to question everything. You're going to feel bad about yourself. You're going to feel bad about other people. You're going to feel bad about God. You're going to be disillusioned. What's the point of even trying? I mean, you're going to end up having a horrible time with whatever, because we've based our serenity on some future thing happening a certain way. And let me tell you, being able to intuitively make plans and let go of the results is a practice. It's a practice. It's something I have to watch my mind, that my mind doesn't get too excited about a thing and tell myself all the stories about what it's going to be, right? Now, there's also the other side of that, where we're afraid of something happening in the future, right? We're afraid we're going to fail something. We're afraid we're going to lose something. We're afraid somebody's going to leave us. We're afraid our health, something's going to happen with our health, or on and on and on. We're afraid of a situation. We're afraid of the results of something. Or if we're having legal trouble, and if we're in our sobriety, then we're afraid that we're going to end up going to prison, or we're afraid of getting, fined for something, or we're afraid we're not going to have enough money, or we're afraid we're going to be homeless. And I'm sorry if I'm making you afraid, but like the same thing, is that we recognize that, again, we cannot base our serenity on something happening or not happening in the future. It's something so powerful about living one day at a time, about recognizing that all we really have is today, and that tomorrow will be today, and that somehow, whatever it is that and I trust this. I didn't trust it before, but I trust this. That they have a saying that no man stands in the same river twice, because it's always a different man, because he gets older, wiser, and it's always a different river because it flows. And so future Lisa is going to be a different Lisa. It's going to be a wiser, I hope, Lisa. But there are things I'm going to learn as I go, because as I'm present, I learn. As I'm present. As I'm checked out, I don't learn. But as I'm present, I learn. And intuitively, I get the things I need to know that I don't actually know. If this thing happens in the future that I'm so afraid of happening, I don't actually know where my head's going to be then. So if it even happens, I will be prepared somehow. Even if all I'm doing is processing with people and I'm learning things as I go and preparing for it in some way, but I don't have to worry because current me feels inadequate for the story I'm telling myself about future. But that's not who's going to be in the future. And so, yeah, don't get attached to things being a certain way or not being a certain way. Ask for guidance every day in each way. And, So that's for that one. Another thing that happens that could be anti one day at a time is procrastination and time pressure. I don't know if what percentage of us are adrenaline junkies, but I don't know why I seem to need a hit from my inner pharmacy. For so long, I would leave things to the last minute. And the procrastination and then the time pressure and the stress of it can obviously make somebody uncomfortable in their own skin. And if you think that you thrive under pressure, maybe just look at some parts of that and see if you're having the peace of mind and if your body maybe could do with a little less cortisol and you could be more balanced with more peace, how that might benefit you. And not procrastinate. Procrastination is also, I don't want to deal with this. I have a crazy story about how stressful this is going to be. It's not going to be fun. I would rather do something else. And so it builds it into this monster, right? Until you have to deal with it. And that's a very stressful way, it doesn't have to be this, what was this saying? It was so funny that when we procrastinate and we build things into mountains, that it's like pole vaulting over mouse turds. Like we're literally overdoing it. It's so much headspace. And we're really not really truly procrastinating it because we're really not thinking about it, right? We're like putting it off, but we're not really putting it off because the thought comes that needs to get done, and then we, forget it. No, it's like stressful. It's the easier, softer way is just dealing with it, facing it, questioning it, getting help if you need help, etc. Another way we can have time pressure that can make us uncomfortable in our own skin is running late. I used to run late to events that were spiritual and that were all about meditation and discussion and it's hysterical to me. Like I would actually tell myself the Serenity Prayer in the car on the way over, laughing at my insanity because I'm stressed, because I'm running late, and I don't care who you are. If you're running late and you're attached to getting someplace on time, running late, attached to being someplace on time, that time pressure, that story of yourself in that's enough to give somebody a coronary. So start giving yourself more time. Now that sounds like easier said than done. Sometimes you can't do that. I know sometimes I can't do that, right? So I had to give myself a choice, and this changed everything. And it made me a very nice driver. If I'm running late, I have to let go of being on time. And if I'm early, then I could be on time. But either way, my peace of mind has to be the most important thing. They say in recovery that we have to put our recovery first no matter what. We have to put our state of mind, our emotional sobriety, our serenity. It has to be our most important thing. And it doesn't mean that we don't feel our feelings. It just means that we need to be mindful of how we are creating all of this drama and learn new tools on how to live. And so, yeah, just keep doing the next right thing. It's amazing what ends up happening, what we end up discovering. Another question that people asked is, what if I never get to where I want to be? And again, this is a future tripping story about how, I'm going to do all this work. Maybe I'm going to go to a 12-step meeting. Maybe I'm going to do 12 steps. Maybe I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to work on myself. Oh my God, this sounds so daunting. What if I never get healed? What if I never get the kids back? What if I never get a good job again? What if I never get blah, 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 blah? And, I did all of that. I would what if myself into just, like I said, I would shut down. I overwhelmed myself. And I heard this really cool saying once. I don't think I must have read it in a book, but I believe I did, where the person was saying, I always wanted to go back to college to get a degree. And the other person said, well, why didn't you? And that person said, do you know how old I would be by the time I got the degree? And the other person said, so how old would you be if you didn't get it? I loved that. Because the moment I tell myself that something's going to take too long, I say to myself, okay, so let's say I think that this is going to take 3 hours and that's too long, right? What's going to be in 3 hours when it comes to this thing? Am I still going to have it to do? Do I want to live in a state of mind where I'm not healthy? How long do I want to live like that? And I guess I'm one of the lucky people that I became very aware that my programming was so messed up, I grew up with people who didn't have any coping skills, and there was a lot of shame and a lot of guilt and a lot of fear and anxiety and shoulds and shouldn'ts and coulds and couldn'ts and shouldn't haves and all that. And honestly, I got that there was something wrong with my thinking. I didn't know how much that was wrong with my thinking, but I got the memo. And so to me, it's just programming. It's just information. It's things I've believed. It's things that I've believed and I'm acting on as if they're true. Stories about myself, stories about the world, stories about other people. And I'm not even really living my life. I'm not blooming where I'm planted. I'm not trusting. Life becomes a race. And it becomes a race to get this invisible, constantly moving carrot. Constantly. Never happy. Get the thing, move the carrot. Don't get the thing, get a different carrot. Doesn't matter. Constantly making myself miserable. And it's God, I venture to guess that the majority of our health problems are from how we treat our bodies and what we think in our minds, period. And to learn to live one day at a time, to trust life one day at a time is so powerful. So let's see. Another question was, how do you stay in the moment when you have so much guilt for the things you did in your past while you were in your addiction? And so this is a really good one. Again, the stuff that happened in the past, our interpretation of it, that's where our guilt is coming from as well. Maybe the people that are holding resentments towards us, or maybe the government, maybe we're in trouble. But our conscious, something's not right. Maybe we're of the mindset that because we did this stuff, we are unlovable. We're not worth anything. We deserve punishment. If we have all that toxic thinking, can you see how we can be so uncomfortable in our own skin and want to be anywhere but here, anytime but now? So how do you stay in the moment? We must process this stuff. We must process it and find out what's really going on, sort it out. I have found that sorting out my guilt, I would find, if there was something I legitimately felt I shouldn't have done, focusing on the guilt, punishing myself, and telling myself how unworthy I wasn't going to fix anything. Focusing on the guilt just magnifies it. It doesn't heal it. But forgiveness does. Now, it's an interesting thing about forgiveness. A lot of people think that forgiveness means that you just give yourself a pass. That's okay. Clean slate. The mind is still going to hold on to that. It knows what it's holding against you. And so, to me, forgiveness is the recognition that the thoughts I was thinking at the time, where my head was at, what I believed, who I thought I was, what I thought I needed to do, what wasn't healed, that state of mind, like remember when I spoke about future Lisa being able to handle future thing? Well, past Lisa knew less than current Lisa does, and past Lisa did the best that she could, because past Lisa believed in a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't healthy, right? Now here's the rub. If current Lisa doesn't sort out what was driving the bus, the decisions I made, the thoughts I was thinking, if current Lisa doesn't sort this out, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And there's nothing to stop future Lisa from doing what past Lisa did. And a lot of times, that's the reason why we don't realize it. We hold on to the guilt. Because we think that if we hold on to the guilt, that in and of itself will stop us from having those experiences again. But if we hold on to the guilt, it's kind of like when they would say, whatever you do, don't picture a pink elephant. And the whole exercise is to show you that if you tell yourself not to picture something, the first thing you're going to do is picture the thing that you're not supposed to picture, because you need to know and keep an eye on the thing you're not supposed to keep an eye on in your mind, and it's just around and around and around in a loop, right? So if you focus on the guilt, you're focusing on the problem. You're focusing on the effect. You're focusing on the feeling. You're not focusing on the solution. The solution is to find out what was going on, what was your part, what amends can you make, how can you sort this stuff out. If you're in a 12-step program, to do the 12 steps to find out what was going on and to make those corrections, to find out what your habits are, to find out how you can have new habits, and to make amends for things that you may have that you need to make an amends for with people. To clean it up, to have in your mind when you think of the event a completely different experience. That's what we're looking for. How do we stay in the moment when we have so much guilt? We recognize that we can't solve it all in one day, and that we do need to take it one step at a time, but that if we take it one step at a time and process this stuff as it comes up, we'll be able to heal and we'll be able to be free to the past. And eventually, and this is what I like that they say in 12-step recovery, that we'll get to a place where we don't regret the past or wish to shut the door on it. And that no matter how far down you've gone, your experience can help another person. And that's what's so important. Finding out what's driving the bus, finding out what it was really about. It helps to get rid of guilt. It helps to get rid of resentment. It's really important. And so when we recognize I'm having a hard time right now, I'm having a hard time staying in my own skin. I feel very, very uncomfortable. Okay, why? Because I keep thinking of this thing. Well, I'm not going to feed this feeling. I'm not going to feed this guilt, but I am going to want to process it, journal it, talk to people, maybe go do the steps and find a way to see this in a different light and to do something different, to see the world differently so that I can capitalize on it and I can learn the lesson that it was there to teach. It's so important. But realize you did do the best with what you had. It's not trite. It's the best we had. Otherwise, we would have done better. We need to be able to be self-forgiving. Another question was, what if I have a record or legal troubles, relationship issues, health issues? Again, even more important to be present. Don't project a negative result. Don't focus out on the future about all the things that could go wrong. Recognize, you know what? This is why I tell myself, I love this line. I'm on a need-to-know basis. I have no idea. Could this happen? Maybe. And if it's a fear story and it's really got my lunch and I can't just be like, all right, I'm going to focus on today, one day at a time and do the next right thing and let go of the results, turn it over to a higher power. If I can't seem to get that piece, I get to the other side of it. I've been through a lot in my life. And the things that I've been through in my life, I lived through them. And so I could see how it wouldn't be necessarily the end of the world. Even the idea of being homeless, I did this on, right? And I was like, okay, well, been there, done that. I was like, well, if that was to happen, okay. I mean, I can't control everything, but I do know that I can at least look at what I'm thinking and what I'm doing as my next right step and let go of the results. And yeah, it's these tools are so powerful. Have an open mind, trust your higher power, develop a relationship with your higher power, and do the next right step. Another really cool thing is a gratitude list. For me, gratitude lists move from being very simple to making a gratitude list of all the things that you're happy about in your life that you're grateful for. And that gratitude list will grow as you're sober longer and clean off of drugs. But just being grateful starts to tune into, instead of being grateful for things, because we don't want to base our serenity on people, places, and things being a certain way, eventually it becomes, I'm grateful for the path. I'm grateful for the lessons. I'm grateful for the freedom. I'm grateful for the empowerment. I'm grateful for the wisdom. I'm grateful that if I do have this in my life, it's obviously there for me. It's a deeper gratitude. So wherever you're at in your recovery, if you're just starting and everything I was just saying is Greek, just start writing a list of the things that you're grateful for, and I promise you it'll start changing your perception. Because when we come from this lack mentality, we can make ourselves feel so crazy, and that craziness is not the place we want to live in, and it's going to make us so uncomfortable in our own skin. And we will be focusing on the past and the future again because we'll want out. So yeah, lastly, but it's not really about one day at a time. I know that it seems like, this is the saying that we say, it's one day at a time, but it's not. It's one day at a time just for today. I'm not going to drink today. I'm not going to use today. I'm not going to do this bad behavior today. I'm going to give myself this day. Sure. But as we get more and more present, as we tune into God, as we become more authentic, as we get out of the story about who we think we're supposed to be and where we think we're supposed to be, doing what we think we're supposed to be doing, having all the cash and prizes that we think we're supposed to be having, and all of that, when we get out of that headspace, this false self, separate self identity, and live more and more in this moment, in this present state, connecting consciously with our intuition, with our true self, clearing out that channel, living one moment at a time, one step at a time. And that is the miracle of one day at a time, is that when we were living one lifetime at a time, and then at times living 1 year at a time, right? New Year's Eve, New Year's resolutions. But we get to a place where we live one day at a time. And then we climb inside that day and we learn how to live one moment at a time. And that has been the biggest game changer. So whenever I can get my head into a not so peaceful state of mind, I have to ask myself, how important is it? How important is this? I have just told myself a story and believed it. I have just sold myself on how important something is, that something gets done by such and such time. And is anything really more important than my peace of mind? Is anything really more important than my sobriety? Because if I put anything before my peace of mind and my sobriety, I'll likely lose it, because I need to be uncomfortable in my own skin. So I could be happy about things without getting attached to them. I could have concern about it and process it without focusing and scaring the shit out of myself. And I can learn to live one moment at a time, tuning in, praying, asking for that inner guidance, talking to people, and living in the solution. Please remember that the opinions expressed here are strictly those of the person who gave them, and this does not represent any particular 12-step program, and this should not replace your own intuition or professional medical advice. You can watch us on Facebook, YouTube, on Amazon Fire TV. You can listen to us on the PHLV radio app, or you can get our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. I'm super grateful that you joined me on this episode. I really felt to do this one solo and to answer these questions and to share my experience, strength, and hope. So thank you for walking with me on your journey one day at a time, one moment at a time. And thank you for joining us today on The Real Recovery Show. We'd like to give a special thanks to our sponsor and gracious host, PHLV Radio, here in Las Vegas. So see you next week.